I vowed to transfer schools with my childhood friend when he claimed he was being bullied. But the day before we were to finalize the transfer, he backed out. His friend teased him, "Man, you faked being a punching bag just to get rid of Alice Wiley? That's cold, you two have been thick as thieves since forever, are you really cool with her going to a new school alone?" Shane Page brushed it off, "It's just another high school across town, not a big deal, I'm tired of her always being up my ass, this works out perfectly." I stood frozen outside the door for a long time, finally, I turned and walked away. On the transfer form, I crossed out Oathport High and filled in the international academy my parents had been pushing for. Everyone seemed to forget that Shane and I were never equals. The moment I overheard the truth, my heart slammed against my ribs. In the past month, my childhood friend, Shane Page, had been feeding me stories of being jumped, framed, and humiliated at school. I threw myself into shielding him, but I couldn't block every blow. When it became unbearable, I suggested he transfer schools for a clean slate. That day, he was soaked from a bucket of ice water, his sharp cheekbones ghostly pale. He grabbed my hand, trembling, "I can't face a new place alone." We'd been inseparable since kindergarten, walking to and from school together for over a decade. Deep down, I'd been nursing a quiet crush on him. So, in a rush of loyalty, I promised, "Don't worry, Shane, I'll go wherever you go." But standing outside that private room, I realized it was all a cruel ruse to push me out of his life. Does he hate me that much? Inside, his friend kept talking, "Alice is crazy about you, what if she falls for someone else out there?" Her? Shane scoffed, as if the idea was absurd. "She is so loyal she'd take a beating for me and not even flinch, you think she'd ever stop loving me?" His friend muttered, "I don't know, but she doesn't seem like someone you mess with." "No chance," Shane said lazily, "our school is full of rich kids, but has she ever given any of them a second glance?" His tone dripped with disdain as he continued, "She is always up my ass, it's annoying." The room burst into laughter, sharp and mocking. I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted to the floor, forcing me to endure the humiliation. One guy clicked his tongue, "First time I've seen someone push away a girl who is crazy about them, respect, bro, but if you're sick of her, why not just tell her? She doesn't seem like the type to pester you." Shane frowned, "She is too intense, being straight with her wouldn't be that easy." He paused, then dropped the real bombshell, "Besides, Esther gets all torn up whenever she sees Alice, she only feels okay when I'm there to hold her hand, I'm doing this for Esther's sake, Alice will just have to deal with it for a bit." It clicked like a puzzle snapping together. Shane started faking the bullying just a week after Esther Howell was transferred to our school. "You sly brat. A new girl shows up, and you're already whipped," someone chuckled, "but Esther has got that fragile, damsel in distress vibe, guys eat that up, unlike her, Alice is sharp and always has that icy glare that keeps everyone at arm's length, no matter how gorgeous she is, that's a tough sell." The others piled on, tearing me apart like sharks on a feeding frenzy. Shane didn't stop them or defend me, he even nodded along, agreeing with their jabs. My heart sank into a dark, throbbing abyss. For a fleeting moment, I wanted to knock down that door and demand answers. Why did he lie? Did he feel even a flicker of guilt watching me get hurt for him? Did our years of friendship mean nothing? But my mom's words echoed in my mind, "Don't waste energy on pointless battles, people don't turn rotten overnight." In the end, I turned and walked away. The pain crept in slowly. I could have shrugged off a friend's betrayal, but Shane had crossed that line, blurring the boundaries between friendship and something more, that made the cut deeper. The day we agreed to transfer, he dragged me to a bar to celebrate our escape. The dim neon lights cast a hazy glow, and I couldn't tear my eyes off the guy I'd loved in secret for years. My heart raced, wild and untamed. When he leaned in to kiss me, I didn't pull away. Years of bottled-up feelings surged, overwhelming me like a tidal wave. Unable to hold back, I asked, "Shane, what are we now?" He dropped a tender kiss on my forehead. "What else, silly?" The bar exploded with cheers, mirroring the spark in my heart, but just 2 days later, his words shattered that fragile hope. I laughed through my tears, the sound bitter. It looked like that flirty, vague answer was just another trick to shove me aside and make way for Esther. The wind chimes in my bedroom clinked, the breeze drying my tears bit by bit. My broken heart began to mend. Shane was wrong about us from the very beginning. He was just the Page family's illegitimate son, while I was the sole heiress to the Wiley empire. We were never meant to be tethered together, we belonged to different worlds. The transfer form in my hand was a wreck, the ink smudged by my tears, but it didn't matter. I'd print a new one, the Wiley family always had a backup plan. I filled out a new form, pausing at the section for the new school, then I called Pauline Wiley. "Mom, what's the elite school you mentioned before?" "Yeah, I'm going alone." The wind chimes rang out, crisp and joyful, like they were cheering me on. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, Shane's face didn't haunt me. Instead, I saw a guy who looked a little like him, sharper and more striking. He flashed a cocky grin, just like he did 2 years ago. "Mark my words, Alice, you'll ditch Shane for me." Back then, I thought he was just messing around. Now I was done with Shane. I finished the form and heaved a deep sigh of relief. My heart was finally at peace. Then came a knock on the door, startling me. I lived alone in this house, and except for me, only one person knew the passcode. I opened the door, and there stood Shane, his voice as warm as ever. You didn't show up to say goodbye to our friends. I was worried. I kept my tone even, my stomach's acting up, so I'm staying in. As I moved to close the door, I caught a glimpse of someone behind him. Esther, small and fragile, flinched when our eyes met. Shane noticed her reaction and pulled her close, his arm a protective shield. Alice, you're scaring her. There she went again, acting so timid, like I was some monster when I hadn't done a thing. My expression hardened. I told you, I don't want strangers in my house. Shane's brow furrowed. Esther's not a stranger, she came because she cares about you. Before I could respond, Esther's eyes welled up with tears. Alice, I'm sorry, I know you've always looked down on me, but I swear I shower every day. She sniffled, all pitiful. I won't mess up your house. Shane glared at me. Her family is not rich, but she's not what you think. You're really letting me down here. Esther tugged at his sleeve, playing the bigger person. It's okay, Shane, don't fight with her over me. She forced a teary smile. She said you two go way back. How could I ever compare? Don't say that, Shane murmured, cupping her face gently. You're one of a kind. Then he turned to me, his expression cold as ice. Esther is upset. I'm taking her home. Reflect on your behavior, and don't forget to get your transfer form stamped. He was right about one thing. I did need to reflect, but on my blindness. I changed the passcode without hesitation. The knot in my chest loosened, like I'd finally exhaled a breath I'd been holding for years. The next morning, I took my new transfer form to school. As the secretary stamped the seal, a pang of emptiness hit me. I stared blankly at the ink until someone blocked my path. Shane's brows creased. You changed the passcode on your house? I went back to check on you after dropping Esther off, but I couldn't get in. I cut him off. Yeah, I changed it. He swallowed his displeasure, slipping back into that familiar, warm tone. What's the new code? So, I can swing by and look after you. No need, I said flatly. I'm moving out after the transfer. He glanced at the folded form in my hand and facepalmed. Oh, right, I forgot about that. Don't worry, I'll get mine stamped tomorrow. Walking and talking with him felt like a faint echo of our past. Ever since Esther entered the picture, these moments had all but vanished. I closed my eyes, letting nostalgia tug at me one last time, then I tested him. After all we've been through, you don't need to worry about me. He was silent for a moment. Actually, Esther suddenly appeared behind him, clutching a stack of notebooks. Her voice was sugary and whiny. Shane, you promised to help me study. Where did you run off to? She shoved the notes at him, batting her lashes. I saw your tutoring plan goes 2 months out, so I prepared some study materials. You're not mad I snooped, right? Not at all, Shane responded with a forced smile, shooting me a quick, guilty glance. When I didn't react, his eyes dimmed a little. I knew what was going on. While he was pushing me away, he'd been planning a future with Esther, one that didn't include me. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, bitterness spread like a slow-burning whiskey. I dug my nails into my palm to stay grounded. I'll leave you to it. Esther gasped, acting like she just noticed me. Alice? Are you upset because I'm studying with Shane? I don't have the money or connections like you do, so. Her voice cracked, and she started sobbing. Unimpressed, I said, get out of my way. Shane's guilt vanished at my blunt words. He grabbed my wrist, his voice hot with anger. What's with that attitude? He yanked me toward Esther and barked, apologize to her. The last shred of longing in my heart crumbled. My hand flew up, slapping him across the face. You're the one who owes an apology, not to Esther, but to me. Back home, I sifted through the keepsakes Shane had given me over the years. The silver necklace, my 18th birthday gift, gleamed under the light. I'd worn it to school once, proud as anything, until I saw an identical one around Esther's neck. She'd blushed, saying, Shane promised I'd have everything you have. The limited edition teddy bear was just an empty box now. Shane had taken it, claiming he loved the perfume I'd sprayed on it, but the very next day, it was sitting on Esther's desk. Then there were the strappy heels from my coming-of-age party, the indigo-scented oil. Everything I thought was mine alone had been handed out like cheap trinkets. Worse, it wasn't even equal. A bitter smile tugged at my lips as I recalled Shane's endless doting on Esther, always taking her side. If that was how he wanted it, these relics could go straight to the dumpster. I booked a flight for the next day, ready to spend my last night in quiet reflection. At 2 a.m., my phone blared, jolting me from a hazy dream. I answered groggily, but the line was silent. Just as I was about to hang up, Shane's voice came through, heavy and low. Alice, I'm sorry. My brain snapped awake. Is he finally coming clean? But then, he said, Esther hurt herself. I can't leave her alone, so I'm delaying the transfer. That spark of hope crashed and burned, leaving me feeling like a fool. I wanted to scream at him and demand answers to the pain I suffered from his fake bullying. Oblivious, he continued, just say sorry. I was stunned. What? He doubled down, his tone firm. You need to apologize to Esther. She hurt herself because of you. I was speechless, but then it all made sense. With Esther around, every word I said was wrong. Shane's voice turned colder than a winter storm. You're so disappointing. If you say sorry, we can pretend this never happened. In 2 months, I'll join you at the new school. Are you really going to throw away our years of friendship over this? His words carried a sharp threat, but I felt no pain or reluctance. There was only annoyance. I hung up, blocked his number, and deleted it from my phone. I couldn't wait to board that plane. The world abroad felt vibrant, like a fresh canvas. Someone grabbed my suitcase, and I looked up into Stanley Rossi's eyes. He grinned. Alice, long time no see. I shook his hand, a genuine smile breaking through. Good to see you, Stanley. My phone buzzed, cutting through the moment. It was one of Shane's friends. When I answered, Shane's voice came through, laced with panic. Alice, which class did you transfer to? Why is everyone saying they haven't seen you? The terminal was noisy, a blur of announcements and rolling luggage, but through the phone speaker, Shane's ragged breathing sounded unnervingly loud. Alice? His voice cracked, the panic stripping away his usual lazy arrogance. I went to Oathport High. I checked every classroom. The principal said there's no record of you. Where are you? I looked up at Stanley. He leaned casually against a chrome pillar, hands tucked into the pockets of his tailored slacks, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. He didn't interrupt. He just watched me with those sharp, dark eyes, waiting to see what I would do with the final thread tying me to my past. I am exactly where you wanted me to be, Shane, I said, my voice eerily calm. Out of your way. What? No, Alice, stop messing around. This isn't funny. You promised you'd transfer with me. I told you I was just delaying it for 2 months because of Esther. You delayed it. I cut in, the faint static of the international line buzzing in my ear. I didn't. You made your bed, Shane. Have fun lying in it. Alice, wait. I didn't wait. I ended the call. I stared at the black screen for a second, feeling the phantom weight of a decade's worth of habit. The instinct to fix his messes, to shield him from the consequences of his own actions, flared up and died just as quickly. I tossed the phone into my handbag. So, Stanley said, his voice a rich baritone that cut through the airport chatter, the stray dog finally realized the leash snapped? Something like that, I breathed out, a genuine smile touching my lips, though I think he's more upset he lost his bodyguard than his friend. Stanley chuckled, stepping forward to take the handle of my luggage. Our fingers brushed, his skin was warm, his grip firm. I warned him 2 years ago, you can only play a queen for a fool for so long before she takes the board. He gestured toward the exit, where a sleek black Bentley waited by the curb. Welcome to London, Alice, let's get you properly reacquainted with the top of the food chain. The drive to the academy was a revelation. For the last few years, my world had shrunk to the size of Shane Page's insecurities. I had dimmed my own light so his fragile ego wouldn't cast a shadow. Here, the air felt different. Jude's International Academy wasn't just a high school, it was the breeding ground for the next generation of global industry leaders. The campus looked more like a centuries-old estate, all ivy-covered stone and sprawling, manicured lawns, juxtaposed with cutting-edge glass facilities. When I stepped out of the car, I inhaled deeply. The crisp, rain-washed air felt like a baptism. You're in the East Wing, Stanley said, handing my bags to a porter. We share a macroeconomics seminar on Tuesdays. I expect you not to hold back. I've been bored out of my mind waiting for some real competition. I looked at him, noticing the stark contrast between him and Shane. Shane always needed me to stand slightly behind him, to make him look taller. Stanley stood beside me, leaving space for me to step forward. Don't cry when I ruin your GPA, Rossi, I shot back. He flashed that cocky, blinding grin. I'm counting on it, Wiley. 2 weeks later, Oathport. Shane stared at the rusted metal of his locker. Someone had spray-painted the word fraud across it in crude, neon green letters. He swallowed hard, his jaw clenching. It had taken less than 5 days for the school to realize Alice Wiley was truly gone. At first, the guys he hung out with, the ones who had helped him stage the ice water bucket incident, thought it was a temporary fight. But when Alice's mansion was listed for sale and the Wiley family lawyers formally withdrew her endowment from the school's athletic department, reality set in. Without Alice, Shane wasn't the untouchable, breeding prince of Oathport. He was just the Page family's illegitimate son. His father barely acknowledged him, and his trust fund was a joke compared to the generational wealth walking the halls. Hey, Page, a voice sneered from the end of the hall. Shane stiffened. It was Trent, the guy who had poured the ice water on him. Back then, Trent had done it for a couple of $100. Shane slipped him to play the villain. Now, Trent was flanked by 3 linebackers, and none of them were smiling. Where's your attack dog? Trent taunted, shoving Shane against the lockers. The metal rattled violently. I heard she dumped your ass and moved to Europe. Guess her charity run ended. Back off, Trent, Shane snapped, trying to push him away, but the linebacker to Trent's left grabbed Shane's collar, lifting him onto his toes. You owe me for the suspension I caught last month playing your little game, Trent growled, delivering a sharp punch to Shane's gut. Shane doubled over, gasping for air. The pain was blinding, entirely different from the fake bruises he used to paint on with makeup to get Alice's sympathy. He expected a furious shout to echo down the hall. He expected Alice to step between them, her icy glare sending Trent running. But the hallway remained apathetic. Students walked by, ignoring him. Shane, a thin, reedy voice cried out. Esther dropped her books and ran over, her eyes wide with manufactured terror. Stop it. Leave him alone, she shrieked, batting her hands uselessly at Trent's shoulder. Trent laughed, shoving her aside easily. Esther stumbled and fell to the floor, instantly bursting into tears. You're lucky the bell is ringing, Paige, Trent spat, dropping Shane to the linoleum. Bring cash tomorrow. Shane sat there, coughing, his ribs aching. He looked at Esther, who was sobbing loudly on the floor, waiting for him to crawl over and comfort her. For the first time, the sight of her tears didn't make him feel like a protector, it made him feel exhausted. When he had faked being bullied, Alice had single-handedly dismantled the social lives of anyone who crossed him. She didn't cry, she went to war. Esther just sat there, a useless, weeping mess. Get up, Esther, Shane muttered, wiping blood from his lip. Shane, my knee is scraped, she whimpered, holding at her leg. It hurts. A flash of raw, bitter realization hit him. He had orchestrated this entirely. He had pushed away a girl made of steel for a girl made of glass, just to feel like a man. And now, he was bleeding, and the glass was just cutting him. 6 months later, London. Checkmate. I moved my rook, tapping the mahogany board lightly. I leaned back in my leather armchair, swirling the dregs of espresso in my cup. Stanley stared at the board, his brow furrowed in genuine concentration. He let out a low whistle. A trap. You baited me with the knight 4 moves ago. You were too focused on going on the offensive, I said, resting my chin on my hand. You forgot to protect your king. Stanley chuckled, knocking his king over with his index finger. Fair play, you're ruthless today, Alice. It had been 6 months since I left the States. In that time, I had shed the remnants of my old life like a second skin. And St. Jude's, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I led the debate team to nationals, secured a junior internship at a top-tier London investment firm, and built a network of peers who respected my intellect, not my money. And then there was Stanley. Our dynamic was electric. There was no coddling, no walking on eggshells. If I made a mistake in a presentation, he ripped it apart before the professors could. If he missed a loophole in a contract mock-up, I tore him to shreds. We sharpened each other. It was late, the library around us completely empty save for the patter of rain against the Gothic windows. The only light came from the brass desk lamp illuminating the chessboard. Stanley reached across the table, his fingers lightly tracing the edge of the board until they stopped at my wrist. His touch was no longer just casual, it carried a deliberate, simmering tension. You've changed, he murmured, his dark eyes locked onto mine. For the better, I hope. Undeniably, you don't have that shadow hanging over you anymore. His thumb brushed the pulse point on my wrist. You look free. My breath hitched slightly. The sheer intensity of his gaze was a far cry from the confusing, breadcrumbing affection Shane used to give me. Stanley didn't hide how he felt. He was direct, unwavering, and entirely present. I feel free, I admitted, my voice dropping to a whisper. Stanley stood up, slowly rounding the table. He stopped right beside my chair, placing a hand on the armrest, boxing me in. I tilted my head up to look at him, my heart adopting a sudden, frantic rhythm. Good, he said softly, leaning down until his lips were inches from mine, because I've waited 2 years for you to look at me the way you're looking at me right now. When he kissed me, there was no hesitation. It wasn't a drunken mistake in a neon-lit bar, used as a pawn in some twisted psychological game. It was deliberate, possessive, and intoxicating. I kissed him back, my hands tangling in the soft fabric of his sweater, pulling him closer. For the first time in my life, I wasn't fighting for someone's affection, I was just receiving it. 1 year later, Geneva, Switzerland. The Global Youth Economic Summit was the crown jewel of the international elite. It was an invitation-only gala designed for the heirs of massive conglomerates to network, posture, and quietly negotiate marriages and mergers. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of the banquet hall, adjusting the cuffs of my bespoke ivory pantsuit. The diamonds at my throat caught the chandelier light, sending fractured rainbows across the glass. I was attending as the official representative of the Wiley Empire, my father having formally stepped back to let me take the reins of our European division. You're pacing, CEO Wiley, Stanley whispered, coming up behind me. He slipped his arm around my waist, pressing a kiss to my temple. He looked devastatingly handsome in a classic black tuxedo, his hair slicked back. I'm not pacing, I'm surveying the battlefield, I corrected, leaning back into his warmth. Right, well, try to leave a few survivors. My father is looking to acquire tech startups, not bury them. I laughed, turning to face the room. The hall was packed with old money and new tech titans, and then, my eyes caught a discordant note in the symphony of wealth. Standing near the entrance, looking utterly out of place, was Shane Page. He was wearing a suit that was expensive but ill-fitting, likely rented or bought off the rack at the last minute. He looked thinner, his posture defensive, clinging tightly to his arm, wearing a ruffled pink gown that looked like a cheap prom dress compared to the haute couture in the room, was Esther. I arched an eyebrow. How did the Page family manage an invite to this? Stanley followed my gaze, his expression hardening into a smirk. Desperation. The Page patriarch's domestic logistics company is tanking. They're begging for European investors. The old man probably sent his bastard son as a last-ditch effort, hoping he could scrounge up some sympathy. I watched them for a moment. Shane was sweating, trying to hand his business card to a French shipping magnate who brushed him off without a second glance. Esther was pouting, pulling at Shane's sleeve to show him a tray of champagne, oblivious to the fact that her boyfriend was drowning in a sea of sharks. A year and a half ago, seeing Shane's struggle would have sent me running across the room to save him. I would have leveraged my name to get that French magnate to listen. Now, I just felt a mild, clinical amusement. Shall we? Stanley offered his arm. We shall. We moved through the crowd effortlessly, the sea of elites parting for us. Greetings were exchanged in French, Italian, and English. We were the golden couple of the summit, radiating the kind of power that couldn't be faked. As we approached the center of the room, Shane finally spotted me. I saw the exact moment the air left his lungs. He froze, his eyes widening as they swept over me. I wasn't the girl in the shadow of his high school drama anymore. I was a titan in my own right. He took a step toward me, dropping the business cards he was holding. Alice? His voice was barely a whisper, but I read his lips perfectly. Before he could reach me, Esther noticed his distraction. She followed his gaze, and her face went pale. Her grip on his arm tightened instinctively, her eyes darting nervously between me and the massive, glittering crowd that clearly deferred to me. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow my pace. I held Stanley's arm, keeping my chin high, and walked right past them, letting my gaze slide over Shane as if he were part of the wallpaper. Alice, wait. Shane's voice rang out, a little too loud for the dignified murmur of the gala. A few heads turned, brows furrowing at the breach of etiquette. I stopped a few paces away, turning slowly. I looked at him, my expression perfectly polite, entirely blank. Can I help you? Shane swallowed hard, stepping away from Esther. He looked like a man dying of thirst who had just found water. Alice, it's me, Shane, God. You look. He trailed off, his eyes darting to Stanley, realizing whose arm I was holding. A flash of jealousy and disbelief warped his features. Rossi? You're with Rossi? Mr. Rossi to you, Paige, Stanley said coolly, though I'm surprised they let you in without a name tag, or a leash. Shane flushed dark red. He looked back at me, his eyes pleading. Alice, please, I've been trying to find you for over a year. Your parents stonewalled me, my calls wouldn't go through. I need to talk to you. We have nothing to talk about, Shane, I said smoothly. If this is about business, you can contact my secretary, though I assure you, Wiley Corp isn't interested in bailing out sinking ships. It's not about business, he burst out, his voice cracking. It's about us. Alice, I made a mistake, a massive, stupid mistake. The last year it's been hell. I didn't realize how much you... Shane. Esther interrupted, stepping forward with her eyes already brimming with tears. She pulled her classic move, shrinking her shoulders to look tiny and helpless. Shane, why are you talking to her? She was so mean to us. She turned her watery gaze to me. Alice, hasn't he suffered enough? Why do you have to humiliate him here in front of everyone? Silence fell over a corner of the room. A few aristocrats and CEOs paused their conversations, watching the spectacle with mild disdain. In a high school cafeteria, Esther's tears would have summoned a dozen white knights ready to defend the fragile girl from the mean, rich ice queen. But this wasn't a cafeteria, this was Geneva. A sharp, mocking laugh echoed to my right. It was Camilla, the heiress to a Spanish telecom empire, swirling her martini. Darling, Camilla drawled, looking Esther up and down with terrifying precision. Are you lost? The staff quarters are through the double doors on the left. Please don't drip on the marble, someone will slip. Esther gasped, her face flushing crimson. I'm aghast. Really? Stanley chimed in, his voice dripping with aristocratic boredom. Because you're whining like a toddler who dropped her pacifier. If you can't handle the room, don't walk through the door. Esther looked around wildly, waiting for someone, anyone, to come to her defense, but the surrounding elites merely looked at her with polite disgust. She was breaking the cardinal rule of high society: never lose your composure. She grabbed Shane's arm again, sobbing openly now. Shane, do something. Defend me. Shane looked at Esther, then at me. His face was a mask of utter horror. The illusion he had built around her, the damsel in distress who made him feel like a hero, shattered completely. In the harsh light of reality, she wasn't delicate, she was just a liability, a pathetic, manipulative anchor dragging him down to the bottom of the ocean. He ripped his arm out of her grasp. Stop crying, he hissed at her, his voice shaking with rage and humiliation. Just shut up, Esther, for once in your life, shut up. Esther stepped back as if physically struck, her mouth opening and closing in shock. Shane turned back to me, ignoring her completely. Alice, I dumped her, I'm done with her, I see it now, I see what she is, I faked the bullying, okay? I admit it. I was an idiot who wanted to feel big, and she played into it, but I love you, I've always loved you, I was just too intimidated by you to admit it. He took a desperate step forward, reaching for my hand. Before Stanley could intervene, I stepped into Shane's space. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't frown, I just looked at him with the chilling, absolute authority of a queen addressing a peasant. You love me? I echoed softly. No, Shane, you love what I could do for you, you love the shield I provided, the status my name gave you, the way my loyalty fed your ego. You wanted a dog, not a partner. That's not true. It is, I said coldly, and the tragic part is, I would have given you the world, I would have dragged you to the top with me, but you were so terrified of standing next to an equal that you chose to rule over a puddle rather than swim in the ocean. I stepped back, brushing off the sleeve of my suit where his shadow had briefly fallen. You faked being a victim because you are one, Shane, not by circumstance, but by nature, you are weak, and I have no use for weak things. Shane's breath hitched, his face crumpled, the arrogant, charming boy I once knew dissolving into a pathetic, broken shell. He had nothing left, no status, no shield, no Esther, and certainly no me. Alice, he whimpered, falling to his knees right there on the gala floor, uncaring of the dozens of eyes watching him. Please, I have nothing left, my dad is cutting me off, the bullies at school, they practically broke my ribs last month, I need you. I looked down at him, for a fleeting second, the ghost of the 16-year-old girl who would have bled for him whispered in my ear. Then, I silenced her forever. Security, Stanley called out lazily, raising 2 fingers. Within seconds, 2 massive men in tailored suits materialized from the shadows. This gentleman and his +1 have overstayed their welcome, Stanley instructed, not even looking at Shane. Please escort them out, through the service elevator. No. Alice. Please. Shane screamed as the guards hauled him to his feet. Esther was crying hysterically as a third guard ushered her firmly toward the exit. Alice. Alice. His screams faded as the heavy oak doors shut behind them, sealing them out of my world forever. The banquet hall was silent for a breath, then, a string quartet in the corner seamlessly began playing a lively Vivaldi piece, and the room instantly returned to its murmur of billions of dollars changing hands. Messy, Stanley murmured, though there was a dark satisfaction in his eyes. A necessary housecleaning, I replied smoothly. My heart wasn't racing, my hands weren't shaking, the heavy, suffocating chain that had bound me to Oathport and Shane Page had finally shattered into dust. Stanley reached out, gently tilting my chin up so I had to look into his eyes. The mockery in his gaze was gone, replaced by a fierce, burning admiration. You are a terrifying woman, Alice Wiley, he whispered. I smiled, a slow, predatory thing. I reached up, pulling him down by the lapels of his tuxedo until our lips brushed. I know, I breathed. Are you scared? Stanley's arms wrapped around me, pulling me flush against him as he kissed me deeply, claiming me in front of the entire room. Terrified, he mumbled against my lips, but I wouldn't have it any other way. 5 years later, the name Shane Page was nothing more than a cautionary tale whispered among the minor socialites of Oathport. The Page family logistics business collapsed under a mountain of debt a year after the Geneva summit. Shane, having flunked out of community college without his trust fund or anyone to bully into doing his homework, ended up working as a mid-level shift manager at a shipping warehouse. I heard through the grapevine that Esther stayed with him for exactly 3 months of his poverty before leaving him for a 50-year-old car dealership owner. People rarely change, they just find new stages for their old acts. As for me, I didn't have time to dwell on the past, the future was too demanding. Sign here, Mrs. Rossi. I took the Montblanc pen from the lawyer and scrawled my name across the bottom of the merger agreement. Beside me, Stanley signed his own name with a flourish. The Wiley-Rossi conglomerate was officially born. It was the largest corporate merger of the decade, tying our families, our fortunes, and our lives together permanently. Done, Stanley said, tossing the pen onto the mahogany desk. He leaned over, kissing my cheek. Congratulations, co-chairman. Congratulations to you, co-chairman, I replied, standing up and smoothing down my skirt. We walked out of the boardroom, our fingers interlaced. The massive floor-to-ceiling windows of our penthouse office overlooked the sprawling skyline of New York City. The world below looked small, a grid of endless possibilities waiting to be conquered. I leaned my head against Stanley's shoulder, feeling the solid, unwavering strength of the man who walked beside me, never in front of me, and never behind me. What's next? Stanley asked, looking out at the city. I smiled, the wind chimes of my past completely silent, replaced by the roaring engine of my future. Everything.